This is the Incongruous channel. I'm Dr. Andy Yates. And the show I did on Saturday on Beetroot Radio, www.beetrootradio.co.uk, was about giants, basically. And I kind of tracked their history, or mythology, or legend, okay, sort of through, down through to modern times. And I found this kind of conspiracy theory. Now, I'm not saying I'm the first, but certainly it was a very interesting conspiracy theory. And that's often how my research ends up, just uncovering something. And I'm thinking, wow, there seems to be that. Because my mantra of picking up stones, looking underneath, there's another stone under there, lift that one up as well. That's the sort of thing. So I'm going to present here this conspiracy theory. It's a theory, right? But it's kind of fascinating because it draws quite a lot of things together that are in the sort of, what should we say, the modern view of conspiracy theory right now. It's actually, out there and people are talking about it. So, and of course that I did the show, the 90-minute, 100-minute show is on www.drandyates.com. This is the Incongruous channel. So if you like this and you find you appreciate it, please like, share, and subscribe. I would appreciate it. Thank you very much. Now, let's start with God. Okay? So I'm going to the Bible. So these are quotes from the Bible, not for me. And all this information is referenced in my big show, the one on www.drandyates.com. So go and have a look at that if you're interested in where I got this information from. From the Bible, right, Adam and Eve broke God's laws. And they were already on Earth because they reckon Eden's in the Middle East. And they basically said, well, God said, you've lost your immortality because you're not going to go to the tree of life, but you did eat of the tree of good and evil. Therefore, you now know you're man and women. Well, man and woman, what do? They get together and they make babies. So that's what they did. So everything was cool in heaven. Not really. Because God had a bit of an upset with the primary angel, who I'm going to call Lucifer. Okay, but he was the prince of the angels. Really, the only crime he committed was wanting to be equal or better than God. And God didn't like that, and they had a war. And Lucifer lost, because he would, because God's your opponent. You're not going to win. So he was banished to earth along with the angels who supported him. They became the fallen angels. Okay, some call that the Nephilim, and the Nephilim fits in there somewhere because it appears in the Bible. So, okay, well, it also says in the Bible that the sons of God, the fallen angels, the Nephilim, whatever they were, found the women of man attractive. And variously it says things like, and they took them for their wives, or they came unto them. Well, we all know what that means, right? So anyway, of course, the women got pregnant, and then they gave birth to either named the Nephilim or giants. Men of renown, men of great stature, okay? So you get the idea. So there's this line of giants coming down. Now, God, it seems, wasn't very happy about what had happened, because now there were two bloodlines. There was the line of God coming down through Adam and Eve and so on, and there was the line of Lucifer coming down through the giants. So God said, okay, Noah is a good guy. He's perfect. He's not got this tainted blood. So I'm going to save him and get rid of everybody else by making a flood. Okay. Now, we know the flood wasn't all over the world, unless it was the one after the Ice Age, and that was kind of a bit too early for that, say 11,000 BC, whereas we're talking maybe 3,000, 2,000 BC, something like that. But anyway, but whatever. The problem is some of the giants survived. They either survived because they were the progeny of Noah and his 3 sons and 2 daughters, or they survived some other way. They were outside the range of the flood, whatever. Because you see them again and again in the Bible, like Goliath. There's one you see. And Goliath had 4 brothers, which are also mentioned in the Bible. Giants, basically, right? So that's that one line. Now, in that area of the world, you've also got Samaria and Babylon. famously, the Jews came out of Babylon when they were released from servitude or slavery by the king of Babylon around 500 BC and were allowed to go on their search for, well, go to the promised land. They weren't the ones that came out of Egypt. There's a lot of debate about that, whether that actually happened or not. But fact is, 40,000 Jews, so it's said, went to the promised land, Israel, what is now. Okay? So on their way, they experienced very tall people, giants, Nephilim. So that fits all that together. Now, in Babylon and Sumeria, which is all in the kind of Tigris, Euphrates Valley, whatever, the Fertile Crescent, right? Part of the Fertile Crescent. Whenever you look at the carvings and the seals and the translations and stuff like this, you'll always see their gods as being big, right? Now, it could be that the sculptor, when commissioned to commission a sculpture of the god, turned around and said, well, I got to show him as big because he's powerful and all this kind of thing. And he wanted the king to say, oh, that's a great sculpture. Oh, I like the fact that you made me big there. Good job. There's 10 pieces of gold, whatever. Or it could be that they were giants. That's the point, you see. Because in Sumeria, you've got the conspiracy theory about the Anunnaki. Now, it seems that the mythology of the Sumeria, the Anunnaki, is actually a real mythology, at least, a religious legend, whatever you want to call it. And that there were this other race of beings, the gods, who came down and ruled over the Sumerians. Zecharia Sitchin, who was a Russian-American author, supposedly translated some of these cylinder seals that they use for writing and discovered that these were an alien race from the Pleiades, okay, who had come down and they altered man's genetic structure to move from Homo erectus to Homo sapien, and then the Homo sapien then was used as a slave. Well, of course, Homo sapiens, us, being as we are, after a while and your brain's developing this bit at the front here, the human part of the brain, you start to say, wait a minute, why am I doing all the work? How come I'm not getting paid more? I want more rest days. I want Sunday off, whatever. And so consequently, they kind of were always rebelling and so on. But what, according to Sitchin, was that the Anunnaki, their cities, their technology and so on, was wiped off the planet by Noah's flood. Again, could only have happened locally, right? So that's that idea. You've got the alien line, the bloodline coming down from the altered genes or DNA of perhaps Homo erectus or just Homo sapiens. Because when you think about it, in principle, there's an awful lot of similarity, isn't there, between the Bible and the Anunnaki Sumerian legends. Let's move on. There's an odd one, is the giants in the United States. And there's giants all around the world through history and reports and so on. And there's newspaper articles saying about how giant bones were found in the mounds of America. And you need to look that up if you don't know what that is. But there are, like we have tumuli in this country, Britain, right? Over there they have mounds, and in the mounds the bones of giants. Listen to this quote I'll give you here because I've got my notes here. The eyes of that species of extinct giant whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed upon Niagara as ours do now. Who was that? Honest Abraham Lincoln, right? 1848. Well, why would he have said there were giant bones in the mounds if there weren't giant bones in the mounds, right? It just seemed to be that was, everybody knew about that. But we don't know so much now, do we? Conspiracy theory coming up, right? So the idea is, and you can see newspaper accounts, the New York Times, for example, where they record that archaeologists have found giant bones in one of the mounds and everything like this. And generally they say, and they've been taken to the Smithsonian Institute for investigation. And when they get to the Smithsonian Institute, they disappear. Gone. As if something's being covered up. Okay? And you've got to start to wonder, well, if this is true, if this is true, looks like somebody's trying to cover up the fact that there is giants, that they may have been our predecessors, that they were bigger, stronger, whatever, plus the fact that they're in our DNA somewhere, just like Neanderthals in our DNA. Gets a bit interesting, doesn't it? So let's bring it nearer to home. Let's talk about Britain. Now, in Wales, there were lots of giants, okay? And these giants were around at the time of King Arthur. Now, King Arthur, it seems, was real. He was a real king that was around in the 6th century, like the 500s. He was a Roman Celt, and he fought against the invading Angles and Saxons, and lost eventually because we all became Anglo-Saxon. And that's the way the bloodline flows, right? But there were giants, according to legend, Welsh books that were written, the Mabinogion. And if Mabinogion is a collection of writings and so on, so is the Bible. So it's equivalent, I'd say. But anyway, so there was Arthur and the Giants. And there was also recorded in the Welsh triads about Arthur and the Giants. In fact, in the Welsh triads, Gagfran the Giant is father of Arthur's third wife, Gwenhwyvar. So, historically, mythologically, through legend, if we believe in King Arthur, there were giants. Now, what was interesting was King Henry II, let's just make sure it was King Henry, yes, King Henry II, was enamoured by the legends of King Arthur and was told that King Arthur was buried at Glastonbury. So he sent a team of diggers over there and they dug down and they found a lead cross on which said, "Here lies the body of," I'm almost tempted to get it. I've got a paperweight behind me. I should have planned that better. Anyway, now, let's look. Sorry, this is the Incongruous channel. I don't think I'll even cut this out. This is the Incongruous channel. Here you go, look at this. That is a copy of what the cross looked like. Yeah, with the Celtish writing on it. Of course, this is a souvenir. So on that side, that's what it says. Here lies buried Arthur. All right. Sorry about that gap. Incongruous channel, right? Anyway. So there's that legend there. Now, when they dug up the sarcophagus that was under that cross, they found the sarcophagus was huge and it contained the bones of a 9-foot skeleton. Giant, right? Right. Now, moving on a little bit over a bit in geography, there was a guy called Rolv the Walker, who was also known as Rollo. And he was a kind of tough guy in Norway, and he got kicked out of Norway. And he put together a bunch of ships, attacked Paris, took that over, and created the Dukedom of Normandy. And he was the leader. Okay? And you might think, oh, wait a minute, I've heard about this in history. Especially if you listen to my shows, because the Dukedoms of Normandy often come up through Scotland's lineage, through their royal line, and through England's royal line. And in fact, Rollo was the ancestor of pretty much all the kings in England, at least. All right? And Rollo was so big, he was called Rolv the Walker, because he had to walk because he was too big to be carried by a horse. A giant. It's interesting, isn't it? Lovely conspiracy thing. Delicious stuff. You've got to love it. You've got to love it. You've got to love it. All right. So, that was Rolv the Walker, ancestor of all the English kings and queens, obviously. So the question is there some kind of little cover-up? And there's little bits of little tweaks, little interesting things that come along. I mean, we've always said the Freemasons were involved with the bloodline, because of course this is the Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown, right? A very, very popular book and a movie. And that was the principle of it. I know it's fiction, but the principle of it was, which is very close to, that's why it was so popular. It was very close to evidence we see around, right? And the fact that there might be a cover-up, because I'm sure there are. Anyway, so I'm just still laughing about me getting that paperweight. Sorry, I hope I didn't spoil this thing. Anyway, and this idea of protecting the bloodline being important, because we know the bloodline through kings and queens is a straight line. We know they basically can't marry by their rules or whatever. They can't marry outside the bloodline. They've got to marry a little tweak of blood. We know that Meghan Markle was tested before she, what's the right word, married Harry, right? Because she was tested. I mean, she did an interview and said she was tested, pricked on the heel. They took blood from her and this kind of thing, checked the DNA out, found that she had a very, very, very distant relation to Aristocracy in France, I think. So, you know, that's the way it is. The bloodline's being protected. But what's interesting about this conspiracy is it kind of draws possible, maybe mythological, maybe legendary, but possible lines all the way from God, down through Noah, through the prince of the angels, Lucifer, right? All the way down through. And remember, Lucifer's only crime was just having an upset with God. I think the religions created the devil and Satan and all this kind of thing because they needed a bad guy to balance the good guy. They needed a threat to say, this guy's going to get you if you don't come here and put a shilling in the plate, right? So then there's the line of the Prince of Angels coming all the way down through the giants and then through the giants of history. Not sure the American giants fit into this, but America's still a very interesting place as far as archaeology is concerned. And then you've got the line that comes down from the UFOs, the aliens, the Pleiades, through the Anunnaki, all the way down that way through Sumeria. That could be the biblical line anyway. So you get the idea. It's this bloodline coming down right from way back, coming all the way through. And could that be tied into something like, because you know the Freemasons are all involved with this at some level, or it seems that way. Lovely conspiracy, if nothing else. And the 32nd degree, would that be the Scottish Rite, the York Rite? 32nd degree anyway is the Prince of the Royal Secret. Gotta love this stuff. Gotta love this. I do it because it's so much joy, right? It'd be interesting to actually discover something new. I'm sure this theory is not new. But anyway, so there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget the full piece of this with all the biblical references and all that kind of stuff is on the podcast, www.dr88.com, right? Apologize for getting that paperweight. I should have thought about that. But anyway, that's all good, isn't it? This is the Incongruous channel. I'm Dr. Andy Yates. And please, if you like this, like, share, subscribe. And please, take care.